In the rapidly evolving landscape of 2026, the divide between financial security and uncertainty has become more pronounced than ever before. Many people view a $2 million retirement fund as a distant mirage, a figure reserved only for the ultra-wealthy or those who stumbled into a stroke of luck. But when we pull back the curtain on the latest data from the Federal Reserve, we find a reality that is both sobering and deeply empowering. Only 1.8% of households in the United States have actually managed to cross that $2 million milestone within their dedicated retirement accounts. Take a moment to let that sink in. For every 100 people you pass on the street or wait with in line, fewer than 2 have reached this high level of financial independence. This raises a fundamental question that most people are too afraid to ask. What are those 2 individuals doing differently than the other 98 who are still struggling to find their footing? The answer is rarely found in a high-stakes gamble or a sudden inheritance. Instead, the secret to joining this 1.8% club is hidden in plain sight, through choices that are often invisible to the public eye. It is found in the modest sedans they drive for 15 years and the houses they choose to keep, even when their neighbors are moving into massive luxury estates. Before we examine the specific math that makes this achievement possible, we must address a dangerous illusion that is currently sweeping through our economy. This is the confusion between your total net worth and your liquid retirement assets. In 2026, it is easier than ever to feel wealthy on paper because home values have continued to climb to historic levels. You might look at your property and see $1 million asset, feeling a false sense of security, while your bank account remains stagnant. But as the old wisdom goes, you cannot spend the equity in your shingles to buy a gallon of milk. Home equity does not provide the steady cash flow needed to sustain a life of freedom. You cannot use your granite countertops to pay for a surprise medical procedure or your backyard to fund a trip to visit your grandchildren. True retirement readiness is defined by liquid invested assets. It is about the money sitting in your 401k, your IRA, or your taxable brokerage accounts that can actually be converted into a paycheck. Currently, the median retirement savings for American households is hovering around $87,000. This means that half of the population is facing the future with a very small safety net. When you look at $87,000 and compare it to $2 million, the gap feels like a canyon that is impossible to cross. However, once you strip away the noise and look at the logic, you will see that reaching $2 million is not a mystery of the universe. It is a predictable outcome of basic arithmetic and unwavering consistency. For a person starting their journey today with $0, they would need to invest roughly $14,000 per year over a 36-year career. This assumes an average inflation-adjusted return of 7%, which aligns with the long-term history of the American stock market. $14,000 a year breaks down to approximately $1,170 per month. For many hard-working households, this represents about 16 to 17% of their total income. If you begin this process at age 30, you are on track to hit that $2 million mark by the time you reach 66. If you are fortunate enough to start at 25, the monthly burden drops even further because time becomes your greatest employee. So, if the path is so clear, why is it that only a tiny fraction of the population ever reaches the finish line? The most common reason is that retirement savings are frequently pushed to the back burner in favor of immediate desires. Life is full of competing priorities, such as raising children, funding education, or maintaining a certain social status. The second reason is the silent killer of wealth, known as lifestyle creep. As people earn more money, their standard of living rises at the exact same pace, leaving them with no surplus to invest. They trade their future freedom for a newer SUV or a kitchen renovation that they did not truly need. The individuals in that 1.8% club are masters of avoiding this trap. They understand that a brand new car loses a massive portion of its value the moment it leaves the dealership lot. They choose to live in a house that is comfortable and sufficient, rather than one that serves as a status symbol for people they do not even like. They recognize that owning a home is a great accomplishment, but it should not be their only source of wealth. In 2026, many people are still making the mistake of assuming Social Security will be their primary savior. While Social Security remains a critical foundation, It was never intended to replace a full salary. The average monthly benefit now sits around $2,000 per person. In a world where energy costs and healthcare prices continue to rise, $2,000 is a survival budget, not a thriving budget. To truly join the ranks of the secure, you must understand the 3 tipping points of compound interest. The first tipping point occurs when your annual investment returns finally exceed the amount of money you contribute yourself. This is a quiet but monumental moment when your money begins to do more work than your hands. Early on, your progress is driven entirely by your deposits. But once you reach a critical mass of $100,000 or $200,000, the market starts adding more to the pile than you do. The second tipping point is even more life-changing. This is the moment when your portfolio earns as much in a year as your actual career pays you. If you earn $70,000 a year and your investments grow by 10%, you have essentially hired a second version of yourself. This invisible worker never takes a sick day, never complains, and never stops compounding for your benefit. This shift changes your psychology because work becomes a choice rather than a requirement for survival. The third and final tipping point is reaching the state of true financial independence. This is the point where you can withdraw 4% of your balance every year without ever touching the principal. At $2 million, this generates $80,000 of annual income that will likely last for 30 years or more. When you combine that with Social Security for a 2-person household, you are looking at over $130,000 a year. This is the definition of the American dream, the ability to live a life of meaning without the shadow of financial stress. But here is the secret that the wealthy know and the media rarely discusses. The journey from 1 million to 2 million is significantly faster and easier than the journey to the first million. The first million is an uphill battle that requires you to forge new habits and resist a world designed to make you spend. It might take you 2 decades of grinding to see those 7 figures in your account, but once you are there, that million can double again in just 7 to 8 years through the sheer force of compounding. The second million arrives faster because you are no longer learning the game. You are simply letting the game play out. You are calmer during market volatility because you have seen the cycles, and you trust the long-term trajectory. You have built the mental muscle of discipline, and that discipline makes the later stages of wealth building feel almost effortless. In our current world of 2026, we are surrounded by overpriced distractions. Fast food prices have surged to the point where they no longer offer any real value compared to a home-cooked meal. Designer clothing and high-end electronics are marketed as necessities, but they are often just anchors that hold you back. The people who reach $2 million are those who can see through the marketing noise. They prioritize their future peace of mind over a temporary dopamine hit from a new purchase. They understand that every $100 they invest today is a seed for a forest that will provide shade for them decades from there. If you are feeling behind, or if you are starting your journey later in life, do not let despair stop you from taking action. Even if you are 50 years old, the power of a focused decade can completely change your destination. It is never too late to begin cutting unnecessary costs and redirecting that capital into assets that grow. Reaching a tipping point is not a matter of luck. It is a matter of time and the refusal to quit. You do not need a genius-level IQ or a background in finance to succeed. You need the courage to live differently than the 98% of people who are drifting toward an uncertain future. Identify what truly brings value to your life and discard the rest. Is it a flashy lifestyle that leads to a mountain of debt? Or is it the quiet confidence of knowing you are completely self-sufficient? The choices you make in the coming months will dictate which side of the financial divide you will occupy. Invest in yourself, stay consistent with your plan, and trust that the math will eventually work in your favor. The path to $2 million is paved with small daily victories. Your future self is counting on you to make the right choice today. Financial freedom is not a destination you reach by accident. It is a fortress you build brick by brick. Start building yours right now.